Hey, this is Frantz Kantor, and I'm a cartoonist and an illustrator and blabbermouth and a toon talker, etc. And I'm here at the Australian Cartoon Museum here in Docklands in Melbourne.
Downtown Docklands.
With
Jim Bridges.
my
and
guest.
I'm the fellow who started this museum.
Yes. So, what are we doing today? We're doing an Australian cartoonist. So, I've got a couple of cartoonists in the wings. So one of them is Noel Counihan, which I'm going to be drawing. But today, I'm going to be focusing on this fellow. And if you don't know who that is, I don't blame you, because it's been a long time.
His name's Stan Cross.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out what made Stan Cross today.
Yeah. Well, he did the
Wally and the Major.
Wally and the Major.
Yeah.
So it's these guys.
Amongst other things.
Yeah.
There he is there with the puppets, Wally and the Major.
Right.
You'll have to put a bow tie on him, not a tie.
I never saw it. I've only ever seen these.
Yes. Well, there he is.
See, look how big the comic strip is. It's quite a nice.
All those guys
size, isn't it?
work big. They work big.
They started out in big.
Yeah, they all started big. They all drew big at school. That's what they were taught.
So,
and
he's famous for this, of course, which is the...
Yeah, Stop Laughing, This is Serious.
Yeah. And there's two versions of this, apparently.
Yes, there's that version. So he's pulled his pants down. He's obviously got no undies, and he's looking and he's laughing.
And
his
there's
head
one
off.
with a ruder one. With
no, what's actually happened is that his pants are completely broken down, and they're slipped down, and he's got big feet, so he's holding the pants, he's further down. They're still laughing. They've got all their mates called out here to help them. There's a big crowd downstairs, and they're laughing their head off.
This is a gag from the silent era films.
Yes, but...
Parachuting.
Yeah, but also there were all these cartoons that came out about building skyscrapers.
Right.
But this was a big deal in Australia because in America, the Disney cartoon of the Three Little Pigs... became a clarion cry to get out of the Depression years. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Not us, right?
Wolf at the door.
That's right. And so this was the Australian version. This became very popular. Thousands and thousands of people wanted copies of it to stick up in the wall to give them, to drag them out of the Depression, because it was, and it's called Australia's funniest.
Why is there two versions of this?
Because later on, his pants are now, he's hanging even lower, hanging just by his pants.
It's second later.
Yes, and it's worse. His mates are all called out here to pull him up, but they're in the worst situation than ever before.
Okay, so he revisited
and
for an
saying,
actual cartoon?
Cartoon. People want to know what happened to them. People wanted to know what happened to them.
Right.
So just draw it. No, a couple of weeks later. Yeah, and they're saying... Yeah, it was really
that
popular.
the lost cartoon, or was this the lost
No, that's the original they just found. Anyway, the point is, they've got the original, the second cartoon, and also the plates to the second cartoon. Tony Rafferty had it. But the crowd is, the gag is that, that was a lucky squeak, we're lucky to get out of it. But they're not out of it, they're in a worse situation.
So he's a cartoonist, and back in that era, in the 1940s...
Well, this is the end of his career, where he was just doing a comic
What year was this?
33?
33, okay, just before the war.
Yeah, Depression time. And
so
he ended up doing Wally and the Major. That was a... But we'll tell that story later.
Apart from the slouch hat, you could imagine this is and the sixpence, you can imagine this as a British cartoon strip.
Yeah, well, Australia was very British.
Yeah.
Very British.
So the tradition of this cartoon... Stan Cross's cartoon has been used on yearbook covers.
Yes, and actually that is the image of the Stanley Awards.
Yeah,
and,
which is a bronze thing, like the
So the Stanley Awards is like the Australian
Academy Awards.
Cartoon Awards, Academy Awards for cartoons. And they have this...
Anton Emden?
Yeah, and every year they have that cover, because Stanley's.
All
There's
of these
another
different ones.
Yeah.
For the yearbooks.
Well, it's slightly different, but they're still hanging on there, you know.
Yeah. So this is him. I just thought we'd very quickly go to this site here, Lambiek. He was actually born in Los Angeles in 1888, the son of English parents.
Yeah.
And they eventually settled in Perth, Australia in 1892.
How old was he?
From 88 before.
Yeah. So he's really Aussie, isn't he?
Very, yeah.
Yeah. Some of the greatest cartoonists.
He was published in Punch magazine, which is
he wanted to go. They all wanted to go to England because
his first cartoons were there.
Yeah,
published there. So he's quite.
He drew big. He drew big.
Yeah,
well, that's him there as an old man.
That's with Jim Russell.
Yes. Who ended up doing the pots?
Yeah.
The pots is actually 100 years old now. It's the oldest strip, continuous running strip in the world.
Right. So he did the pots and Wally and the Major.
Well, he started the pots, which was called something else, and Jim Russell kept doing it.
Right.
And this
he went on and still did.
This
Wally
is a biography of Stan Cross by Vane Lindsay.
Right.
Yeah.
This one. Life and work of Stan Cross.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's get on to some details here. So he's got this very particular hairstyle, which is a sort of a military side, short back and side. Let's have another gander at this. So he's got this military shorn effect at the sides.
Well, everybody did.
A military mustache.
Yeah, everybody did. British.
Yeah.
British Army sort of looking. You know. I mean, I don't know if you. I don't think.
But he's got this lovely coif.
He had curly hair. He had curly hair when he was younger.
So, I don't know. He probably he liked this, but he could hide it under a hat and look normal.
He could,
because people wore hats back then.
Yes, they definitely wore hats.
So the shape that I'm going for is something quite...
A fat banana.
A fat banana.
A fat banana.
Something like this. I like to have... if I have a three-quarter view, I can do something... I can twist the face a little bit, you know, if there's a little bit of movement, so that things are not symmetrical. So there's some shape there, some rhythm that I can play with. Also, of course, as people get older, their ears get more sort of... They tend to take over.
Much more biggerish. Much more biggerish. Yeah.
So there's the basic idea. The light source, I think, mainly is coming in from the right-hand side. So that means that if there's any shadows of any note, they're going to be favouring the left side of the face. Okay? The other thing worth noting is... people with glasses are interesting because they're twice as hard to do, because you've got to do the glasses in the right. They have to match the size, the left to the right glasses. I mean, you match the size of the left and the right eyes anyway.
Yeah.
But now you've got the double menace of having to match the size of the glasses. And also there's perspective.
Have you ever dispensed with the glasses in some of the work you've done?
What do you mean?
Just to make it easier. Just drawing without glasses.
No.
Have you ever done that?
No, because the glasses are part of their personality, I think.
Yes, especially with him. I don't think it's any photos of him without glasses. So
this strange-looking thing here that I'm drawing...
Yeah, the T-zone.
That's a purple pencil, in your honour.
I wouldn't know.
This T-zone... So-called,
is that really a purple
mask
pencil?
Area.
Oh, really?
That's purple.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I'm colourblind.
I was just going to say...
The nuns used to bash me up because I used their purple chalk. I thought it was blue.
Really?
Yeah.
You had purple chalk. Gee, that's special.
Is
what they use that
purple?
for. That's blue.
Oh, okay. That's blue.
It's blue.
Yeah, I got that right.
So some colours you can see.
Yeah.
Some shades of blue.
Yes.
Other shades of blue. So it might be a tonal thing.
I'm thinking of writing a book called 50 Shades of Purple.
Well, it might be a tonal thing that's confusing you, not the...
No, it's genetics.
Colour.
It's genetics.
because the purple is quite that purple is quite close to the blue.
Actually, sometimes I can get it. I can get it. It's a purple, but not always.
Isn't this interesting? Let's just stop this and just talk about colourblind.
People, it's funny about colourblindness because people think a lot of people think you just see things in black and white, but I don't think anybody I
don't think there's an animal that sees in black and white. They used to say dogs see in black and white.
Yes, but it's not true. Yeah.
It's all rubbish.
Yeah.
Maybe bats see in black and white in the dark because they have sonar.
Well, they don't have to see, do they? They can be blind as a bat. They don't need eyes. They use their sonar.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But in the image in their brain, what colour is it? So, here we go.
But is the image upside down in their brain? That's what I'd like to know.
No, it's
without
optics.
Without optics, because you're using sonar. Optics reverse
the brain
everything.
The brain still receives the upside down
image. Optics reverse
image,
everything, and then the brain turns it around.
Yeah.
But with optics of a bat, because they're not looking, they're not using optics, they're using vibrations, would it be upside down? That's all. This has got nothing to do with Stan Cross, by the way.
It's absolutely nothing to do with
It's probably making Stan Cross talking like this.
So that's a gag that he himself used.
Yes. It was a series. It was a series. Things called what. You see, we're not
being funny here.
What makes
really?
Stan
We're not
Cross.
being funny.
No, it's too hard.
All right, so this is the T-zone, the mask zone. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because when you
that's a great character you've just invented. I've never seen. He's good.
Yeah,
he looks like
the Teabag.
He looks like something out of Zagreb films.
Oh yeah,
all that animation.
I like Zagreb films.
Yeah,
they make good animations.
Dusan Vucek. Yeah.
So light and shade, and because it's a caricature, but it's a drawing.
And
so
fat bananas.
It's being drawn
and fat bananas
in a three-dimensional form. So we're drawing form. The other thing to consider is when you're drawing a likeness, especially a caricature, I'll tell you, it happens in portraits as well. You focus on the area of the mask.
Yes.
Right, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth.
The Mexican mask.
Yeah, the T-zone.
The T-zone.
This sort of effect here.
Yeah.
If you get all of the relationships correct, then you've got a likeness.
Yes.
Right? And that's where you pour all your attention and energy.
And you can do anything with the rest of the face, really. You can. You can make him fat or thin.
Yes, but let me just say this. It's because it's a caricature, you're actually exaggerating the proportions. So you're exaggerating and simplifying. So simplifying, I'm choosing a simple shape in which to form all of the details, right? To reposition the details. And the exaggeration aspect comes in where I am actually moving relationships around within the T-zone. So when I said that keep your eye on this area, I did not mean don't change it. I mean keep an eye on it, because all of these elements have a relationship with one another.
Yes.
So that's the thing that we need to think about.
If you stretch the ratios too much, it just loses it.
This is a thumbnail that I based from this drawing. You can see some nice shapes there. Yeah. Beautiful nose shape. The teeth. The hair, obviously, and the glasses. The eyes are sort of like.
And the moustache.
Yeah. I've taken the opportunity to take this thumbnail.
Is that Wally?
Oh, I forgot to do that.
Is that Wally?
I was going to put Wally in there, yeah. Just put a little
Where's Wally? Where's Wally?
So we'll talk about...
Or Puddin.
We'll talk about Wally
Puddin, really.
in a sec. Anyway, what I was going to say was I've taken the opportunity, obviously, to jump ahead and take the thumbnail and rough it up on the toned paper, where we're going to get a chance to construct a caricature of Stan Cross. And
Stan the man.
Yeah. Is that your phone interrupting the proceedings? Put it on silent. While he's gone, we'll try and get some work done. So not talking about colourblind and... So,
it was that pesky Paul Harvey. He wanted to know when we're going to draw Fay Lindsay. We'll get around to it, folks. Don't worry. We'll get around to it.
So, okay, here we go. We're getting into some of the details. I've made a decision to squish everything within the shape that I quite liked. Now, this shape is something that I have chosen to adhere to. It's an impression that I got. You know how when you first get an impression about a shape, you think, oh, that person's head is very round or square.
Yeah, this is interesting. I think we should talk about this. As a caricaturist, you know, I talk about love at first sight and all that sort of stuff.
What's that mean?
Well, I mean, as soon as people lay eye on somebody, bang, something happens, you know, emotionally and physically and spiritually. Now, with a caricaturist, like a friend of mine told me that he used to work at the showgrounds during the, you know, for a fortnight, and he would draw people all the time, caricature. And he said for 2 weeks, every time he'd look at anybody, they'd automatically, the brain would turn them into a caricature. You know? It's like that famous experiment where the bloke wore glasses that specialised in turning everything upside down. And after 2 weeks, he took the glasses off, and everything was still upside down because the brain, you know,
started to receive that.
So, as a caricaturist, you always talk about, whenever you start a drawing, you always talk about shapes, right? So you instantly...
Shape is drawing. Shape is not necessarily caricature.
Okay,
caricature is exaggerating.
So when you look at a person for the first time and you know you have to draw them, what actually goes in on your head? What can you actually remember what happens in your...
You know that game in Romper Room where you have to remember, you know, Miss Pat or whoever was Miss Thingy used to show all the kids, you know, 5 things on a tray,
and
right?
Then cover them up.
And then cover them up, and you've got to remember what they were.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that's what you're basically doing. Your first impression is based on a biased sort of quick look at the subject.
So the quick look is what? Shape?
It's always shape.
Yeah, okay.
Everything is to do with
drawing
shape.
is shape. Okay,
yeah.
All right.
We respond to shape really quickly because when we're born, we can't see, but we can sort of pick out shapes, silhouettes.
Well, some caricatures turn people into animals. They get an idea.
Anthropomorphic, yeah.
No, they get an idea that this Prime Minister of Canada looks like an eagle or something. So they start drawing eagles. Then they sort of combine the eagle shape into the face of the Prime Minister. So that's how some caricatures work. And other people just go for extremes. Like there are people who actually, you talk about the T-zone, they actually get the T-zone right.
Depends on how angry you are, I guess. You have to be, like Scarf used to draw Maggie Thatcher. As a bird of prey, as an eagle.
But worse than bird of prey. God, he hated her with a passion. I mean, so did a lot of people. But I'm saying with you,
I don't think it's about hate. Let's
make it personal.
You're letting go.
So when you see something, so you then look for idea, you know, like eyes or what, you know. You always draw big noses and big ears, so...
Not necessarily.
Oh, you tend to, so you don't... They're the last things you sort of think about. You don't think, oh, he's got great ears, I'll put some big ones on him. What actually goes through your head in that early period?
Well, they're choices you have to... Look, they're choices you make.
Yeah.
As I said to you, you don't have to make big head... Like classic caricatures are balloon heads, which are big heads... little bodies, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to adhere to that. You can make a big body and a small head.
Yes.
So if you look at somebody and you think, well, they got a pinhead, then you do the obvious. You make the head smaller.
Yeah. It's reverse. In comedy.
Yeah.
The reverse of what is part of the gag. You know, you reverse it. You know.
Yeah. So it's about a challenge and seeing if you can. You know, get some narrative happening, some level of believability or relevance or a likeness within the shape that you've just chosen.
Okay, now
as your game, your puzzle.
Your background is portraiture as well. Now you don't do it anymore.
No,
as you've talked about a few times. But do you go through the same?
I do dogs.
You do great dogs. Actually, I hate to say something really nice about you, but I think you do the best dogs I've ever seen. I think you understand.
I like dogs.
I think you understand dogs better than anybody I've ever come across.
Yeah,
and,
I love dogs.
Yeah,
but everyone does.
You should.
Doesn't love a dog.
Well, not everybody likes dogs.
Well, cat people don't like dogs. But I'm weird because I had a cat too. I loved cats.
Yeah, but you said cat people like it was a swear word. Anyway, so when you're a portraitist, do you go through the same sort of mental addition of what you go from shape and
shape is common to everything.
Yes,
all
drawing, yes,
because you must access something.
But is there
when you're drawing something hard,
yeah.
right? Most people, they find faces and hands really difficult to draw.
Yeah.
So it stops them from progressing. It stops them from drawing.
Yes, it does.
Right? So, which is a sad thing because the one thing that you need to draw are faces and hands.
Yes.
For God's sake.
Well, most great portraits are basically those two things, aren't they? They're not the shoulders or the body, they're the hands. Actually, the hands, when you don't have much of a face, they start doing stuff with the hands, don't they? But anyway, so what else happens in your head when you're looking at a picture?
It's got a really interesting haircut. I don't think I've... this is kind of World War One in a way, this thing. I don't think I've ever seen a haircut like this.
So you pick out things that are unusual. So
you look for things to interest you, to be, like it's an interesting drawing.
Yeah.
And a challenge. So shapes are a way of, like, you convert something into a simple shape, which is great because it's very easy to bend a simple shape.
Yeah.
Like you can take a simple shape of a round. Let's give him most people think heads are oval. Ooh, it doesn't sort of see what happens with
but they're bits
blue tack in the cold. So most people would say,
Viola, go warm up my blue tack, please.
Look, most people look. There's the look. We'll talk about the head in a sec. Yeah. But most people would say that the heads, normal heads, are egg-shaped. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the front, they are definitely.
Yeah.
From the side,
you got bits
they're
cut
more.
Off. Yeah, that's right.
Balls with pieces stuck on.
Their
their
the
facial features, the jaw, etc.
And a few bits of things sliced off at the side.
Yeah. So the idea of caricature is to take this basic shape and to pull it, right, into a new shape, into something that's challenging.
Yeah.
So the challenge is to draw a nose and a mouth and eyes within this new shape.
Yeah.
So this is the new... it's a game, you're playing a game.
Without losing...
You're entertaining yourself.
Without losing likeness, hopefully.
Well, yeah. Within the new shape, you then look at the details and try to get back the details of the story of the face.
You still got him as
the
a
wrinkles
banana,
and
as far as most Australian cartoonists are concerned, he was the top banana when it comes to cartooning. He had a great reputation. He was regarded as the
puns
father
are against my religion.
Pardon?
Puns are against my religion.
Are they? Ah.
Yeah, that's me in the corner.
Do you take your anger out on the pencil sharpener?
I don't know. I just got this tool.
What's wrong with puns? What, they're the lowest form of wit, are they?
Yeah. No, they work for cartoons, but they, just
they
to
work
throw
for
them in.
Shakespeare too. God, if you take the puns out of Shakespeare, what do you got left? He put a lot of puns in there,
Right. Okay.
They're still finding him, He was really good at hiding them,
Yes, he was a man of infinite wit.
Okay, so we're finished talking about that. You don't want to tell me anything more about what happens in your head, to what decisions you make when you start drawing?
You're making decisions to entertain yourself.
That's important.
That's
yes,
all.
I think that's important. You
There's
say
nothing
that
else.
because And also, that's one of the things you say, and I think that's really important because you never
you're
never
challenging
hear the other people say that, but I think having fun is really important.
Well, yeah, but come hell or high water,
Yeah.
you have to please yourself. You have to enjoy the process, right? The process is more important. Look, the end result is great fun. The end result, looking at it and say, right, this is great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But the experience of doing it is the most important thing.
You know,
So don't look at the finish, look at the journey.
That's what Ricky Nelson said.
Ricky Nelson said that.
Ricky Nelson, he said you can't please everyone, so you got to please yourself.
Right.
Went to a garden party.
Okay, so
Yes, well, it's
how did
pudding.
that go?
It's definitely pudding down there in the corner. I like that.
Puddin'. Is that the name,
well,
Puddin'?
Well, it was called pudding.
See,
Some people aren't sure which one's Wally.
Yeah, I never read the comic in the Sunday.
Well, it was in the Herald.
Yeah, I read the Herald. I had 3 papers when I was growing up.
In the Melbourne Herald?
We had the
No, you had the Sydney Morning Herald. Yeah,
we had the Sun Herald.
Yes.
The Sunday
but
Telegraph.
He was only in the Melbourne Herald.
And the Sunday
I'm
Mirror.
pretty sure that was only in the Melbourne Herald.
No, I remember him in the
Oh, you
Sunday
do?
comics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sunday comics, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but not during a daily.
I don't
think it was
the
in Sydney
dailies.
as a daily strip.
I remember Torcan because Torcan was
Torcan came
my
years
name.
later. Torcan?
Was
What's
Kantor.
your name? Really? So Roger Fletcher was one of your dedicated fans, and he named a character after you, did he?
Or I don't know. I just
Have
think
you
it's
ever met
interesting.
Roger Fletcher?
Yeah,
Nice bloke,
yeah.
lovely man, good musician.
I was too scared to mention that to him. I said,
Okay.
hey, your comic is my name.
You're too scared, but I think he knew because he probably likes puns, Although that's an anagram, isn't it?
Well, you would probably have said, yeah, big deal.
Big deal. Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo.
Well, Frantz, you are a bit of a big deal because a lot of people are in awe of your drawing capacity. And
Checks in the mail.
I think you are more of a. I mean, you don't claim to be a caricaturist, but
look, caricature is a thing that people do.
Yeah,
and
but
it's
I can see
well
why
worth the effort.
Yeah, but I can see why you push it away from yourself on quite a few occasions because you are an illustrator.
Yeah.
Primarily, you're an illustrator, and an illustrator, besides illustrating what it's in front of him, he's telling a story, and you're always obsessed with telling a story. You have to tell a story. That's probably why you're an illustrator.
Yeah.
So what came first, the story or the drawing? The storytelling or the drawing? Because storytelling, on all levels, is our greatest thing that makes us human. It really is. We all have this capacity. And you can talk about Shakespeare, you can talk about...
Yeah, but we visualise our stories.
You can talk about Game of Thrones.
Don't think that we're all literary giants in our brains.
No,
we're not.
But
we're directors.
jokes,
we're Spielbergs in our brains.
Knock jokes, all these things, they're all stories.
We're all filmmakers in our brains. We're telling visual stories that move.
Yes, but there's only one Hitchcock. Anyway, I like what you've done with the hair.
Only one Hitchcock. What's your worst Hitchcock film? One you say, I'm not watching this anymore.
The Trouble with Harry. I have a lot of trouble with Harry.
Do you?
Yeah.
Not Frenzy or one of the new ones?
Frenzy's not too...
like
the old
Frenzy.
ones are pretty bad, but you see...
Saboteur.
That's a great film. I love all his films, except The Trouble with Harry, I have trouble with it because it's sort of un-Hitchcockian. Have you seen it?
It's a dark comedy.
It's
just
not
a
even
comedy.
Well, it's about a dead body.
Yeah.
It's
a black comedy.
It's like
not dark comedy, black comedy.
Yeah, but you wouldn't call Bueller's Day Off a dark comedy, would you?
No one dies in it.
Oh, hang on. Who's the guy? What's that film where they drive the dead body around?
Oh, that's Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, Weekend at Bernie's. Well, you wouldn't call that a dark comedy, would you?
Black comedy.
Would you?
Yeah.
I just thought it was
comedy.
Yeah.
Well, it depends.
It's not one of my greatest
I haven't
films.
seen it, so...
Well. Let's talk about things we haven't seen, eh?
I've seen bits of it. I rented it and obviously watched it while I was working or something. So I'm not really.
See, I don't understand that.
You don't understand.
Years and years ago,
you want me to stop working?
No, years and years ago, when
want
I
my
met,
kids
met,
to
met
go hungry.
Met cartoonists and artists, they played music while they drew and painted. But now artists,
I grew up in front of the TV.
videos. They have videos while they're drawing.
Yeah, I used to watch the Mike Walsh show while I was illustrating.
Oh.
And the Today Show, and what's the Ray Martin one?
So you could draw from memory. Do you reckon you could draw Ray Martin and
from memory?
Mike Walsh from memory because you watched them so much?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was working,
well,
so I'm not.
Quite a honk
I was
there.
Listening to the TV and glancing at it, but I'm not watching it. It's the same thing with a lot of videos. You know, like Trouble with Harry, I would have rented, but I would never have watched.
I think the difference between you and Robert Crumb is that he listens to music, and he would never look at the videos while he's drawing.
Well, yeah, but he had good music. I mean, he had classics.
He had the best.
So I never grew up.
He had
with that.
78s. Still has them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Stan Cross.
I wouldn't know what a 78
Stan
is.
Cross, in a lot of ways, was known by all the cartoonists as like the father figure of Australian cartooning. He was like their natural leader.
Right.
And that's based on his draftsmanship, his gagmanship. Can we use that word? Gagmanship?
Gag writing.
Yeah, gagmanship. And also, he was a nice bloke. He was a gentleman. And he wasn't your everyday, run-of-the-mill, piss-pot cartoonist, as there were a lot.
Okay.
Because they were all connected to newspapers. Because in those days, they worked... Most of them didn't work from home like they do today. They worked in newspapers, in the art room. And there was a whole stack of artists there drawing away because in those days, they illustrated everything. Photos weren't as good, so...
Yeah, photos were...
Yeah, and they illustrated stories and, ads, all sorts of stuff.
Photography couldn't get... Photography wasn't able to be reproduced the same way.
I have to be careful because if I mention photography, Frantz always jumps the tracks and starts raving.
No, I like...
You've got to be careful.
I like photographers...
Photography, there's
but
lots
you can't
to see.
compare a photograph with an illustration or work of art.
No.
Come on.
Come on. Yes.
Get serious here.
Okay, we're getting serious. So Stan Cross is really famous. What really put him on the map was he got onto an early newspaper called...
Argus?
No. It's called the Smiths Weekly.
Smiths Weekly.
And Smiths Weekly ended up with the best artist in Australia working at the time. And
it was a weekly paper.
Yeah, it was a weekly paper. And it was quite crazy. Like, they just come... Like, for instance, he had a strip called What Made Stan Cross. And it was pretty racist and pretty racy. They'd get stuck into people. They'd have, for instance... what's his name? They had this cartoonist from New Zealand, George Finey, who was one of the great caricaturists of all time, and he would draw a particular person, but he'd draw it in a whole series, and it's like he'd have these little men, which were George Finey's, and they would get pots and pans and all these other things that this bloke sold hardware in hardware shops for pots and pans and things like that. So he would have these 5 or 4 panels of all these little George Fineys putting all these pots together and making a caricature of this bloke up.
Out of pots and pans?
Out of pots and pans.
So and like Archimboldo with the fruit?
Yes, all that sort of stuff.
So
and they did it with gags, they did it with horses, they did very outrageous things. Anyway, it's one of the funniest things Australia's ever produced, Smiths Weekly. And it died, like a lot of papers died, and they tried to bring it back. It was never the same. But the heart and soul of the paper was this man, this Stan Cross. And they all loved him. Anyway, he did political cartoons, all that sort of stuff, like they all did. But they used to draw big in those days, very large.
Yeah.
And that picture of Stop Laughing, This is Serious, the original is about,
size of a door.
No, it's about 3 foot high by about 2.5.
Size of a hobbit door.
No, hobbit doors are round.
All right,
you obviously haven't read the books.
Of a dwarf door.
Dwarf door.
There you go. 3 foot.
No, I'm not going to get into that, sorry.
You don't think dwarf doors are 3 foot?
No, I don't get into dwarf doors conversation, sorry. You know.
So,
it's interesting.
Diminutive size doors.
In my memory, in my mind's eye, the iconic pictures of this man, he has white hair.
Right. Why?
Because he was old when all these photos were taken of him, you know. Now, you're giving him dark hair, which actually changes everything because, you know, you're opening up a whole new can of fish I didn't know about him. But you've really got stuck into that nose pretty early and very... That's probably the sharpest nose I've ever seen you draw.
No. It's
a
nice nose.
I'm a bit worried about the moustache. It's a very unusual moustache, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's pretty close to the lip, top lip, isn't it?
Almost an eyelash.
Yeah. Anyway, so he was respected by all the cartoonists all over Australia. And when the Smith's Weekly was coming to an end, Rupert Murdoch's father, what was his name? I can't remember his name.
Rupert?
No. Rupert's dad was... anyway, he owned the bulk of the Melbourne Herald.
Right.
And he gave him some extraordinary amount of money to come down to Melbourne because he was from Sydney. He was living in Sydney where Smith's Weekly was put out.
Yeah.
And to do anything he wanted. And he started this strip called Wally and the Major.
Right.
And he was paid more money. He was paid more money than any other cartoonist anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere to do this. So, you know...
So it was a labour of love. It was something he wanted to create.
And, of course, he did this strip. And it was all right. I mean, I've liked Wally and the Major. Very popular. He had this... I mean, how can I say it? He had more than a common touch, this man. He had this universality about him, like everything he'd discuss or draw just had this humanistic sort of, everybody could appreciate, you know?
Yeah. Well, there were lovely characterizations of types.
Yeah.
And, you know, tropes of people or something in society.
Yeah, but I mean...
I'm not really familiar with, but I appreciated them nonetheless.
But, you know, the guy had done a lot of work, like they'd done...
Yeah, they're beautifully drawn.
If you see his early political cartoons, they're like, you know, they're master classes in drawing, you know. He obviously studied art, you know, obviously knew what he was doing. Anyway, he was a gentleman and... no one's got a bad word for Stan Cross.
He's got a little chip in his teeth.
Yeah, no one's got a bad word for Stan Cross, except he did...
Mrs. Cross.
He did these Aboriginal cartoons, which are now considered pretty racist, but they were filled with a lot of love and genuine warmth. But, you know, they were...
why are they considered?
They were caricatures, you know, like, you know... There's some very funny, very, very funny ones.
It's
like
difficult.
There's this woman going around. She's got her little money box that she worked for the Salvos, and they used to go around and they shake their little box and they'd say, you know, money for the Salvos, and they go up to this Aboriginal guy, and they're asking him for money, and he said, because you know, money for Jesus, and he says, and the Aboriginal bloke says, he says, geez, is that bloke still broke? Jokes like that. Yeah.
Well, it's not an Aboriginal joke. That's a
but he would have this
thing
Aboriginal
about giving.
Yeah, but the way
money.
he would draw the Aboriginal, they would, you know, it was most. I mean, he did other things, you know, like they'd be misunderstanding language and things like that, you know.
Right.
You know.
But even that is a sort of a generalised.
Yeah, but he had beautiful, beautiful drawings. They're just beautiful to look at. It doesn't matter what he was drawing; it was just lovely to look at and. Very pleasant on the eye, a lot of detail, you know, lovely cross-hatching, you So I got to know him reading the Herald, and I wasn't that impressed because it was sort of like adult humour for me.
Right.
And then I didn't like the political cartoons in the Herald, but I used to love Wegg's cartoons because they were about football and about funny things. And I loved the way he drew kids, little squashed little.
This is the daily strip, the daily spot cartoon.
Yeah.
Was that in his own page? Like he had his own particular spot?
Yeah, they all did. They all did. Yeah, I mean, he was on the back page of the Herald. The strip was down the bottom or up the top. You know, it did. It wasn't with all the other comic strips. Wally and the Major was separate. Later on, I think they put it all together, but he always had his own spot towards the back of the paper.
Right.
Yeah. But that cartoon, Stop Laughing, Mr. Serious, it became like a clarion cry for don't get upset about the depression because, you know...
She'll be right, mate.
She'll be right, mate, that's right. Well, the Australians are going to get out of this, you know.
Right.
You know. But not many people know he's born in America. That's interesting.
Los Angeles. Yeah. The City of Angels.
And just trying to think because that's on the other side of America, isn't it? That's not on
the West Coast.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he's got quite a rugged demeanour, hasn't he? He's very.
His moustache has got a lot stronger, that's for sure.
That's the.
He was a big bloke. I think he was about 6'2", 6'3". Big bloke. Yeah, that's Puddin'.
Character.
That's Puddin'.
Puddin'.
Yeah.
And he's Wally.
Well, that's obviously
the Major.
Yeah, that's obviously.
And that's Wally.
Except I don't know. This guy's always there. He's just not a cook.
Cookie.
Yeah.
It's a lovely.
Most of the time,
colour?
it was this skinny guy. Hang on, it was this. Where is it? No, that picture there. It was this skinny guy and this guy. He wasn't always in it.
Right.
But they were just straight gags. You know.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously,
So that cartoon took on iconic status, and it was regarded as. I mean, thousands of people wanted copies of it. Thousands. And they went to where was it? When the Australian soldiers were in New Guinea.
Yep.
They came across this place where the Japanese had been. And in the general's office, where the Japanese general was, there was a picture of Stop Laughing Mr. Serious stuck up on the wall.
How did that happen?
With Japanese annotations written on it.
Oh, okay. So
it was like a universal picture. You know what I'm saying?
I don't get it. They took it and tried to explain the culture.
Well, I think they.
This is what we're fighting.
No. I think
people with their pants around their knees.
Those two blokes represented two other blokes to the Japanese. It was the situation that they liked, the universal situation. That they're going to die, they're in a terrible, dangerous position, and they're laughing their head off because someone hasn't got underpants on, you know?
Right. So they actually got the joke.
Yeah, it's universal. That's why people loved him. He was He just had this... He had the common touch, but he also had the you know, like... A lot of... I mean, cartoons can be nasty, and they can be really hurtful too, but he sort of didn't have a hurtful bone in his body, this bloke. You know, that's why he was appreciated. And a lot of cartoonists, especially the political guys, their job is to tear strips off people and get stuck into them.
Yeah.
But he wasn't like that. You know.
So how did he treat politicians? With a bit of...
Well, I mean, he steered away from that stuff and just did all the gags. He was a great gag man, you know, did all the funny stuff. Yeah. And Smith's Weekly, I mean, that picture, Stop Laughing Mr. Serious, that's on the front page of the paper. That's what, you know, like, there were all these cartoon gags about all sorts of stuff right throughout. I mean, they'd have cartoons on the race page about horses and all that stuff. They just had, you know, all lots of, you know, just really, they loved cartoons and they kept on putting them in, you know. It was a diggers' paper too. It started off really... for the diggers from the First World War and all these, there are lots of digger gags, you know, about returned soldiers and drunks and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're great artists, and there are drunks coming home and trying to take their pants off, and they've done all that, and they're putting their pyjama coat on their as their pyjama pants, and of course they're all haven't taken their shoes off, and they're all lots of drunk jokes,
Right.
But they're pretty racist, a lot of it for the time, But they're very popular, incredibly popular.
Yeah.
Whereas the Bulletin was probably the closest thing to it. But the Bulletin was a very conservative paper.
Magazine.
No, it was a paper.
Oh, it was a paper.
It became a magazine in the 60s.
Ah.
It used to have Australia for the White Man stuck on the front cover for many, many, many years until Tanner took over the editorship and took it off.
Right.
Pretty racist stuff too. But
but that was against Chinese, wasn't it? About the gold rush.
The Yellow Peril. Yeah, but the Smith's Weekly was outrageous. They just did really funny things. Really, really crazy things. So using comedy as journalism.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
and special visual comedy,
Well, if you have to educate people, you have to sort of mention an issue, then there's a way of approaching that issue that doesn't sort of, bore everybody to tears.
So it's interesting because you don't know anything about this guy, really, except a few little facts. And I'm just saying, so... if you knew more about him, do you think you'd do a better drawing? Or you just... a lot of it's instinctual? No. Yeah,
instinctive.
Yeah, instinctual. You go by your gut. Oh, I reckon this guy was like this. You talk about lines on the faces and they speak to you about their character and their past and all that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I tend... Look, a lot of this stuff, you go with what your gut tells you is relevant and is true. And, sometimes it's the wrong thing. You make errors, you make mistakes, perhaps.
Yeah, but you don't research a guy if you're going to draw him. You don't research him.
A little bit, but not.
And why do you research him? Because you know nothing about him, or
there might
you want to know more about him?
Well, there might be something that I need to know to make the drawing true.
Yeah.
So truth comes from, obviously holding the.
Well, Hanna-Barbera.
It's not just the likeness.
They're heroes of yours, right? Hanna-Barbera, they're heroes of yours, right?
Yeah.
And you know a bit about them.
Yeah.
But if you had to draw them, would you look them up? Because you want to find out more about them and you want to do a better job, or what?
Yeah, I guess that's part of it, but it's not anything you draw, you have to research, right? So if you want to draw a horse, you get a better drawing of a horse if you research horses, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course, but I'm talking about finding out that he was born in LA and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't show up on his face.
No.
But that sort of builds up a picture in your head somehow.
Everything builds up, every little factoid or a little bit of information.
Factoid.
It's not something that you...
That's an American word, isn't it? Factoid? Yeah.
I don't think it's a word.
Do you know what Don Quixote said?
I can read reading, but I can't read writing?
Close. That was Popeye. He loves saying that.
Look out for that windmill?
No, he said facts are the enemies of truth.
Right.
And if he's American, he'd say factoids are the enemies of truthtoids.
Right. And they give you hemorrhoids.
They do. Thank God for preparation H, I say. Very striking. He could be he's a good-looking bloke, isn't he? He's
a striking... he's a man's man. Looks like a man's man.
Yeah.
She's going to have a few beers with my mate Stan Cross in the pub. Buy him a couple of schooners.
He looks like an advertising executive of the 50s, doesn't he?
Well, the haircut comes from the 20s.
He hasn't got an eye patch, but like they had in the 50s.
Haircut comes from the teens or the 20s.
What was all that about? You know, you go through those old ads from the 50s, and guys have eye patches. They could be selling glasses, they could be selling cigarettes or jewellery or watches, but they always had eye patches, or selling shirts, you know. Is that because everybody came back from the war with eye patches? I mean,
I don't know, but I think that it would have probably happened. One guy came up with
it was only in the 50s, wasn't it? It was only in the 50s you could see these eye patches in the ads. Polaco shirts, all that sort of stuff.
I don't know. It's I'm not sure. I don't know. I think somebody just came up with a mascot with an eye patch.
Got Charlie Chase glasses on.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where they came from, but you know.
Well, you're an expert on advertising. You'd know.
Well, I know how we've used it with shirts.
Yeah.
You know, with
and pipes. Pipes were big in the 50s, weren't they? Everybody was.
Yeah.
Men had pipes.
Mm.
You know. Father knows best.
Well, it's the same with these mustaches, a sort of Devil Doon mustache.
Devil Doon, yes. Devil Doon. Now you're giving your secrets away.
Well, this is almost like this is a bit smaller for
the only way you could get
Flynn,
access to Devil Doon magazine, the strip, was to look at men magazines with ladies in them with not many clothes on.
Mm.
So you were looking at Devil Doon, were you, as a kid, were you?
Yeah, I was interested in magazines.
So your mum and dad let you buy magazines?
You go and nick them from the newsagent when they're not looking.
Nicking them?
Well, you wouldn't buy them.
No.
Why would you buy a magazine like that?
You nicked things from...
Probably tell your mum.
Another starving artist story about nicking magazines from newsagents.
Yeah, but only because you're not supposed to read them.
Oh, okay. They didn't have magazines like that in libraries either, did they?
No.
I remember. I think Playboy did an interview with Robert Crumb, and I went to the main library in the city to see if I could get it
from Playboy.
And they
said, they'd have Playboy?
Yeah, I really thought they'd have Playboy.
Right.
And they said, no, we don't have Playboy. And I said, what? Biggest library in the state don't have Playboy? Of course we don't have Playboy. You know. And it was published a couple of months before that, and of course.
Yeah. Well,
I remember putting an ad in the paper because I really wanted to find out about Robert Crumb, because Playboy interviews go on for a long time, and you'd find out a lot about a person, you know.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good. Another good reason for getting Playboy, I suppose. Anyway,
well, it's the only good reason for getting Playboy. I put an ad in the paper. Otherwise, it's just a girly magazine.
I put an ad in the paper for that particular... I found out what the issue was, and I put an ad in the paper, our local paper, to if anybody had a copy of that thing, and I got the weirdest telephone calls.
Of Playboy?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted this particular copy, you know.
Uh-huh.
I got some really weird calls over that, I tell you.
Did you?
Yeah, I never ended up with it. I've never read that article, but I know a lot about it.
Well, you could probably pick it up for $20 in a second-hand bookshop.
Yeah, but, you know.
Someone might have scanned them. I think you can get the whole collection online as a PDF or something.
Yeah. Just one of those things that, you know, you chase when you... I mean, now it's just incredible.
But they had a lot in there for artists. They had cartoons and illustrators. That's some of the best illustrators in the world.
Hefner wanted to be a cartoonist.
Yeah.
And he loved Cartoonist, and he promoted Cartoonist, and he ended up with the most expensive comic strip of all time, which was Little Annie Fanny, which was virtually painted.
Yeah.
And
drawn twice.
Yeah.
Drawn by two people.
Yeah, and different people too. Got the best in the business. Freshetta, all sorts of people worked on that.
Well, I think once or twice, maybe.
Yeah, but but when you go through the issues, you just see the names. Russ Heath, all sorts of people worked on it. A lot of work went into that. And of course, he had the biggest payments for the cartoon gags.
Yeah.
People from England, all sorts of places tried to get into that. Yeah.
Well, he based it on, I think, he would Hefner would pay. Hefner believed in paying for quality.
Yeah. But
don't ask anything about the girls. I don't know anything about the girls.
He idolised cartoonists because they could draw.
The artists and the writers he paid top dollar for.
Yeah, but he idolised cartoonists because he always wanted to be one, and so he loved them for their humour and their skill. You know.
Yeah. Well, he's the height of the magazine era. I mean, you've got really top magazines being published in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And right into the 70s.
a lot of other magazines had lots of illustration in them. Playboy had gags in it, humour. It didn't have straight. You know what I mean? It didn't have. All those McCall's, all those magazines, Argosy, all those, Saturday Evening Post, all those magazines had a lot of illustration in it, but there was not much illustration in Playboy. It was humorous.
Yeah. No, they had illustrations.
Yeah, but
they
not
had
much.
Stories.
Not much. Yeah, but
they had some of the best fiction writers.
Yeah.
And it provided a vehicle.
Well,
for
the early ones. I don't remember. I was
reading.
Too young. Yeah.
It wasn't uncommon.
When did it start?
It was one of the only magazines
55?
other than Reader's Digest where people would read from cover to cover, because it's full of articles and interviews and things.
Yeah.
And obviously the cartoons and the illustrations and things. And they would do really cool things like they'd have die-cut pages and stuff.
Yeah.
So they went all out on.
It's also quality. A glossy. It was one of the first glossies, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah, probably.
I think it was. Yeah.
But
anyway, I mean, Stan Cross is probably rolling out over in his grave with you and me talking about
Playboy.
Playboy, yeah.
Why is that?
I think he
didn't like it.
I don't think he's the sort of bloke who had a stack of Playboys underneath his bed.
Right.
That his children used to find, and not the type.
It's a very interesting face here. It's a very incredibly gregarious person, very affable, and
he was
loves to talk.
Like he was a real natural talent, you know what I mean? And men admired him, and
Yeah, you can see there's a lot of, because these are like muscles that's formed around the mouth, and it just means that he's just spent most of his time talking and dealing, in a personal way with people. Very, very intense.
You're going to do black background or white?
I don't know. I'll make my decision up based on how much tone is involved in the face.
More decisions.
So I'm a bit sad that I didn't get to read the Potts and Wally and the Major. But
well, the Australian Cartoon Museum archive has
where
some
you
of his work.
Keep cartoons alive.
Yeah, we keep cartoons alive. Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah,
on a daily basis.
I wonder who came up with that slogan.
It was anyway. What's his name?
So tell me more about
what's that guy? The comic strip you're talking about before by Fletcher. Torcan. It was done by Torcan. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about his. I mean, when you're growing up, obviously, reading the pots and reading these comics and things like that. Did they impress you? Were you impressed?
Well, when I was growing up reading Wally and the
humour?
Major, I used to read them, but I didn't really get them. I didn't like that sort of humour. It's adult sort of humour. And,
it's about a time.
And I'm looking at the drawings and I'm thinking, the drawings he was doing for Wally and the Major was nice, but it was sketchy. It was sketchy, and it wasn't his best work. I don't think it was his best work, that's for sure. But when I really got into cartooning, his name just kept on coming up all the time. And of course, he's the bloke who did that famous picture, And it's funny because the second picture, where they're in a worse mess, and the gag is, we nearly, we're in a dangerous thing, but we're lucky to get out of it. I reckon it was twice the drawing, twice as funny, but popularity is like a wave that comes every so often, and if you miss it,
right.
And not everybody gets to see the better wave after it. They're always raving about the first wave,
So this is like the paper, and this was on the front page of the newspaper.
Yeah, always. They had gag big size, like it used up 2/3 of the front page.
Right.
And they did stuff like that.
So they didn't have scoops or like.
Well, you'd open up the page like it was It's what do you call the big papers? The
tabloids.
Tabloids. No. What do you call it? Not tabloids.
One-sheeters.
No, the big ones. Like the old Sydney Morning Herald. What was it called?
Tabloids? You tell me it's another word other than
I thought tabloids were like the Herald Sun and the Daily Telegraph.
I don't think so. Two-sheeters, one-sheeter. I don't know.
Anyway, they're a big size paper, and they have huge cartoons, lots of cartoons, lots and lots. We should do something about Smith's Weekly. It's something that it's a gold mine waiting to be dug up.
Is it?
Except I think that because of the nature of humour, a lot of what was funny at the time was pretty racial and sexist and stuff like that. I don't think it'd stand up to scrutiny, but they're still very funny. I know that.
Well, the Loomis books are very racist, and people still.
Yes, yeah, but that's a great book. That's one of the best books I ever read. I've gone into the State Library and I've been researching them. And when I first started, they hadn't squashed down all the pictures into microfiche yet, and you'd have to wear gloves to look at the papers, and the papers were well worn, thin. Thousands of people had gone in there and looked at them. Thousands.
Right.
And then that's the first time I went in there and looked at them. And years later, when I went in there, you couldn't get those papers anymore. They'd all thrown them out, and after they scanned them, well, they didn't scan them; they microfished them, which is one of the main reasons I started collecting, because when you microfiche print, you can always get the print back, but if you have a really good drawing and you microfiche it, you don't get the great quality.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I started cutting out cartoons and collecting them many years ago, because of the microfiche thing. But I'd be in the library going through the microfiche, and I just couldn't stop myself. I'd be laughing my head off. And people would look around at you, and then you're laughing and you just can't help it. And then a bloke from over there would say, "Smith's Weekly, eh?" And you say, yeah, of course, yeah. And you look down again, because...
Uncle Billy's Whiz Bang.
Better than that, yeah.
So, yeah.
You haven't done a red background yet, have you? Just waiting for the right opportunity, I suppose.
Well, it changes tone
yes,
quite a lot when you start to interfere too much with colour. Colour has its own context.
You've given him some pretty dark, thick lines there, much darker than normal. You've obviously...
I've chunked him up a bit.
You have, yeah, but the outline is quite thick.
Well, let's see if I can maintain it by not...
You're starting to push into the world of Weg there.
Yeah. Well, Weg had something going with his lines, because you can certainly tell them from the
across
other end
the road,
of the street.
as you would say, across the street, yeah. You always say that, don't you?
Well, you know, the thing is that he drew quite big.
Yeah. What side
they
of the street?
Reproduced quite small.
What side of the street do you stand on with Weg's art?
What do you mean? Opposite.
Oh, opposite. Okay. You don't cut his ear off.
You're too close to it. You wouldn't appreciate the line work of Weg, because I love line work. I love shape. Shape is described by line. So line describes shape beautifully, and the thick and thin of a line gives weight and prominence and importance to the shape. So a lot of these thick shapes, thick lines that I've put around the jaw, for example, tends to give it more curvature, sort of an impression of curvature, which is good. It's a nice, fun thing to do, you know. And as I said, it's all about the fun. Otherwise, don't do it. Why would you do it? It's not there are easier jobs. I've always tried, in all my life, all my career, I've tried to get something out of the illustration, out of the job, other than the job.
Well, I think that's the secret of your success, because you're the only person I've ever come across who, when doing a caricature, if you miss it, you don't get him completely, you take it in your stride. You don't throw it in the bin like a lot of blokes do. You say, oh, well,
you can get him next time.
Yeah, you'll get him next time, or her, but you enjoy the process. It's always something to learn in the process.
Well, you haven't failed. All you've done is sort of made a decision.
That's important what you say.
And you've gone in one direction.
That's important what you say, because you haven't failed, but to most people...
You will never know the other direction unless you fail.
That's right. And failure,
you have to fail.
Fail is important. But
and you've got to fail a lot.
To have that
fail often.
To have that experimental and
embrace your failures.
Have fun approach is so important. And so many people stop drawing because they take that part too seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get it. I'm no good. Oh.
Exactly. Well, it's the key of creativity is to embrace those moments of failure, because you need that in order to choose. In order to choose another direction. You'll never know the direction if you keep doing everything perfectly right.
Yeah,
that's terrible. You'll never learn anything that way.
We're not going to segue into jokes about marriage, no. But how many times have you heard stories where someone's doing an artwork, and then they spill the ink?
And then they use that.
And they use that accident, and they end up inventing a really funny character or something like that.
I've heard it a couple of times.
Yeah. But there's truth to it.
There was a guy that did cats from... Vane was talking about once. There was an illustrator, a cartoonist that came up with a cat in his cartoons. A cat design by accident because he dropped ink.
I think that was...
him.
Yeah, him, yeah.
That Goomer.
Yeah.
They're all Goomers.
They're all Goomers.
Everyone you don't know is a Goomer.
I've never heard anybody say a Goomer, except you and Granny...
Granny May Clampett.
That's right. Whose name was...
My hero.
Whose real
my
name
hero, Gran. Irene Ryan.
Irene Ryan, that's right.
My hero. Loved her. Yeah. She did a great song too. She was... what did she do it on? It was some presidential thing where she sang, woman.
Oh, that was on Hollywood. That was on Hollywood Panorama or some one of those shows. Actually, she was introduced. Yeah, she was introduced by Gene Autry and Dale Evans.
Yeah, what was that? Hollywood Stars.
Yeah, Hollywood Cavalcade or something like that.
Right. I love Gene Autry.
You love Gene Autry?
That was Roy Rogers you're talking about, not Gene Autry.
Yeah, I didn't like Gene Autry.
I love Gene Autry. I love
Roy Rogers either. But Hopalong Cassidy, now there was a cowboy.
What about the Cisco Kid?
Oh, terrific! Hey, Pancho, hey, Cisco.
Yeah, that's half hour. That's a half hour of a sketch, just on its own. Hey, Cisco. Hey, Pancho. Hey, Cisco.
Well,
hey,
that's where Cheech and Chong came from. You wouldn't have Cheech and Chong if it wasn't for the Cisco Kid.
Yeah, because it's like they just stretch it out, and it's a show about nothing.
Well, that's not true.
It is. Well, it's about marijuana.
It's about cowboys and you're talking about
cowboys and marijuana.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. What a great combination!
But Cisco and Pancho had wonderful hats.
That's an idea for a show.
Especially Cisco, he had a wonderful hat. I was always looking at the beading around the hat.
Reefers on the saddle.
Blazing reefer saddles.
Yeah,
I can see the film now.
That's it. All right, so
you've given the man gravitas. You've given the man gravitas with all that black.
Yeah, so he's still drying.
It is still drying. There's bits there from the side I thought he's missed, but they're actually highlights of the wet.
But you can see, I actually found these shapes. They were there. They're there.
Yeah.
Right? You may not think about it, but I'm just looking at this nose, right, and exaggerating, because remember, caricature is looking for a way of exaggerating and simplifying. So simplifying is the process of converting something hard into something simple.
Now, before we
go... Which sounds like...
You're virtually finished, but before you go, can you... caricature, most people think it's ripping shreds off a person, but I have a feeling that this is a better picture than that. And you're telling me more in this picture about this man than that picture is.
Yeah, well, I'm highlighting, I'm exaggerating.
So caricature should be illuminating the person, like great portraiture. It should be telling you about that person, getting to the essence of that person, as opposed to just tearing strips off them.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Good portraitures also can tear strips off people.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's up to you. It's up to the... I've enjoyed the process. It's got some nice shapes there, which I've enjoyed applying the details to, and it kind of, sort of, to me anyway, it looks like him a little bit.
Yeah, you've done a good job.
So that's Stan Cross. This is Frantz Kantor and
Jim Bridges saying, "Stop laughing. This is serious."
Yeah, we'll catch you on the flip side. Bye bye.